Hey you guys, what's up? I'm Ashley from heavenathome.org, and this is the Heaven at Home podcast, where my goal is to encourage you in your personal growth journey while being open, honest, and owning my story. We have faith-based conversations and tackle a bunch of different tough topics. Check out the description to follow me and learn more. Remember, you are fully known and deeply loved. Let's do this. Hey you guys. So I'm really excited to be back. I had to postpone last week's episode. So a couple weeks ago, I reached out to my friends on Instagram and Facebook, and I asked you guys what woman you guys thought that I should talk about in the Bible in honor of Women's History Month. And I just kind of wanted to take a creative spin on it and do it a little bit differently. So I'm actually going to be spending some time reading the story of the Shunammite Woman. Her name isn't specifically mentioned. She's just referred to as the Shunammite Woman. So we're going to be reading from 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 8 through 36. I'm literally going to read her story to you guys. So try your best to follow along, and then we'll talk about it after. One day, Elijah went to the town of Shunem. A wealthy woman lived there, and she urged him to come to her home for a meal. After that, whenever he passed that way, he would stop there for something to eat. She said to her husband, "I am sure this man who stops in from time to time is a holy man of God. Let's build a small room for him on the roof and furnish it with a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. Then he will have a place to stay whenever he comes by." One day, Elijah returned to Shunem, and he went up to this upper room to rest. He said to his servant Gehazi, "Tell the woman from Shunem I want to speak to her." When she appeared, Elijah said to Gehazi, "Tell her, we appreciate the kind concern you have shown us. What can we do for you? Can we put in a good word for you to the king or the commander of the army?" "No," she replied, "my family takes good care of me." Later, Elijah asked Gehazi, "What can we do for her?" Gehazi replied, "She doesn't have a son, and her husband is an old man." "Call her back again," Elijah told him. When the woman returned, Elijah said to her as she stood in the doorway, "Next year, at this time, you will be holding a son in your arms." "No, my lord," she cried. "Oh, man of God, don't deceive me and get my hopes up like that." But sure enough, the woman soon became pregnant, and at that time, the following year, she had a son, just as Elijah had said. One day, when her child was older, he went out to help his father, who was working with the harvesters. Suddenly, he cried out, "My head hurts, my head hurts." His father said to one of their servants, "Carry him home to his mother." So the servant took him home, and his mother held him on her lap. But around noontime, he died. She carried him up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, then shut the door and left him there. She sent a message to her husband, "Send one of the servants and a donkey so that I can hurry to the man of God and come right back." "Why go today?" he asked. "It is neither a new moon festival nor a Sabbath." But she said, "It will be all right." So she saddled the donkey and said to the servant, "Hurry, don't slow down unless I tell you to." As she approached the man of God at Mount Carmel, Elijah saw her in the distance. He said to Gehazi, "Look, the woman from Shunem is coming. Run out to meet her and ask her, 'Is everything all right with you, your husband, and your child?'" "Yes," the woman told Gehazi, "everything is fine." But when she came to the man of God at the mountain, she fell to the ground before him and caught hold of his feet. Gehazi began to push her away, but the man of God said, "Leave her alone. She is deeply troubled, but the Lord has not told me what it is." Then she said, "Did I ask you for a son, my Lord? And didn't I say, 'Don't deceive me and get my hopes up'?" Then Elijah said to Gehazi, "Get ready to travel, take my staff and go. Don't talk to anyone along the way. Go quickly and lay the staff on the child's face." But the boy's mother said, "As surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I won't go home unless you go with me." So Elijah returned with her. Gehazi hurried on ahead and laid the staff on the child's face, but nothing happened. There was no sign of life. He returned to meet Elijah and told him, "The child is still dead." When Elijah arrived, the child was indeed dead, lying there on the prophet's bed. He went in alone and shut the door behind him and prayed to the Lord. Then he lay down on the child's body, placing his mouth on the child's mouth, his eyes on the child's eyes, and his hands on the child's hands. And as he stretched out on him, the child's body began to grow warm again. Elijah got up, walked back and forth across the room once, and then stretched himself out again on the child. This time the boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Then Elijah summoned Gehazi. Call the child's mother, he said. And when she came in, Elijah said, Here, take your son. She fell at his feet and bowed before him, overwhelmed with gratitude. Then she took her son in her arms and carried him home. Really quickly, I've heard this story a lot of times. But I never really stopped to notice that this woman didn't actually get around to telling her husband that their son had passed away. Her son passes away at noon, and she doesn't inform her husband what happened. She just asks him to get a donkey ready, pretty much. And that kind of stood out to me because the whole time that process is happening, she's like, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And so I'm sure you guys might be wondering, wow, Ash, like, why this one? But it stood out to me when Elijah was telling her, hey, this time next year, you're going to have a son. Like, stop and think for a second. Like, why wouldn't her reaction be like, oh my gosh, yes, like, I've been waiting for this for so long. I received that. I'm excited. No, instead, her response was, no, like, she actually cried out, no, don't get my hopes up. And for me, I'm just thinking about what we're trying to imagine, like the history behind that. What would make that her response? And as a mom now, I feel like there's a lot of things that just impact me differently. Just the image of this woman holding her son in her lap as he was dying. That part hit me. It got me, you guys. And then her urgency to go out without like really talking about what happened. She didn't inform her husband. All she told the servant was to hurry up and not to stop. She told Elijah's servant Gehazi, everything's fine, all the way up until she was at Elijah's feet. And she's like, did I ask for this? That whole part kind of like I resonated with that part. And then her son comes back to life and she's just so overwhelmed with gratitude. And I love that this story has a happy ending on this side of heaven. But okay, so like, why am I sharing this story? I'd like to propose something to you guys today. And I promise I have a pretty short point with this. I'm going to be very straightforward. I think one of the most powerful demonstrations of your faith require getting your hopes up. And this episode is part of our Heaven at Home series. So I'm going to tie this into whatever you guys are believing for in your houses as women, as wives, as moms. I know what it is to be so familiar with pain that the thought of opening yourself up to more opportunities to get hurt is like a no-go. I know because I've been there. I know what can go wrong because I've seen it. And I know what all the heartbreaking possibilities are. I know what all the fears are. My mother actually went through multiple divorces. I saw the effect that it had on her. I saw the effect that it had on us. And not only just the divorce aspect, but just the relationship, marriage aspect. I saw the pain that it caused her and the pain that it caused us. And I just had firsthand experience about what it looks like when you get marriage wrong and the pain that can stem from that. And when you're a kid growing up, I don't think we realize how much stuff at home actually messes with us and our identity and our outlook for the future. I was in the house for 17 years when I graduated. So that's 17 years worth of time that we're at home. Just imagine like all the little moments that could have contributed to a fear of what marriage and family would look like for me. I remember when I was 17, I left the house. I was getting ready to go off to college. And after I graduated, God really started working with me and my stepfather, and he was really working in my favor at home. And my stepdad actually paid for me to attend this Ignite summer internship. And it was there that I actually started to realize, like, I had this crazy revelation of how distorted my view was of God as a father, as a heavenly father. And I realized how distorted my perception of myself was also as a daughter. So when it comes to family in those roles, the daughter, the wife, the mom, all I ever really felt confident about was what not to do. And really quickly, Mom, if you're listening, I just want to say that you're the best and I love you, and I wouldn't change anything about the mom you are for me. You're the best mom in the world. But so just when I ever pictured getting married and having a baby, it was just an imagination. Like, it was just a happy picture. And I kind of displaced myself from actually seeing as a real possibility for me. I couldn't really see me like signing up for that. But throughout my engagement, I felt so much peace. And on my wedding day, my father and my stepfather were walking me down the aisle, and my mother was in the front row. And while I was walking and taking those steps of real faith, I just knew that God was with me. And in my vows, I remember saying, because I actually looked at my wedding video last night, I remember saying that as much as I can say, I can, I will, I promise. I've seen what can happen at home, and I know that it takes a whole heck of a lot of God for things to be successful. And I'm going to go into more details about that in the following episode, in the next episode. But just little things like that, like being a good spouse, raising healthy, happy children, believing God, accomplishing goals, growing, dreaming, all that stuff that, I don't know, that just breaks generational patterns. Little things that could be so standard, so normal for everybody else, could actually be a miracle for you. And, like my previous pain, my previous struggles, all of them have made me stronger in my struggles now. And I just wanted to encourage you guys today and challenge you guys for whatever it is that you're believing for, in whatever area that is. For those of you that love the Lord, and for those that He calls His own, get your hopes up. Get your hopes up. And it's so, believe me, I know it's like so much easier said than done, but don't be afraid to be big. Don't be afraid to step out. Don't be afraid to grow or change. Don't be afraid to dream or to love. All that stuff. Like, I feel like we have no idea how much little demonstrations of faith we practice every day just by getting our hopes up and believing God to walk with us through the valley and through the mountains. So I also wanted to just quickly share Lamentations 3:21. Yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. All right. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. I know today's podcast style was a little bit different, and I wanted to make sure that I left room for you guys to just reflect on your own lives, your own situations. So I hope that ultimately, though, it was encouraging. I hope that it was uplifting. Thank you guys so much for listening. Feel free to DM me to send me your feedback. Check out the description below to follow me on social media. This podcast is listener supported. Don't forget to subscribe. Remember, you are fully known and deeply loved. I'll see you in the next one.